If you're a driven, active person who wants to reach and pursue a higher quality life with some ambition, then guess what? This podcast is for you. This is the Driven Athlete Podcast. What's up, y'all? It's your man, Dr. Kyle. We got the dude with us again, Taylor Snook, the legend. I know you're a busy guy. Thanks for coming in again.
Happy to be here.
Out of your busy schedule, you know? But yeah, so remind people again where you're at, what you're doing, what your field is and your specialty of stuff to help people.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm double logoed up today. So I'm still at One Fitness. We're getting ready to open a new gym called Trap House. I'll give you guys a couple brief details on that in a little bit. But as of right now, yeah, still at One Fitness over in downtown West Palm, small boutique gym. Personal training and a little bit of HIIT. Been there now coming up on year 4, which is
wow,
awesome. Yeah,
cool.
Crazy. Trap House, the new gym that we're opening up is going to be actually just a few blocks away. It's going to be a 10,000 square foot open gym format where we're going to have an exclusive membership that's going to go through an application process. We're going to be limiting the number of members, trying to bring a high-end version of the open gym format to the West Palm area. We're going to have obviously, you'll be able to train on your own in there. We'll have a recovery aspect that'll be cold plunges, saunas, potentially like a steam room. And then we will have HIIT classes as well. That'll be part of it. So super excited to get that going. If you're interested in it, we are coming up on the opening date. We're going to be pre-sailing some memberships soon. So keep your ears and eyes open. Again, Trap House Palm Beach. You can look it up on Instagram.
Cool. So y'all are this is going to be like, you're going to be very selective with members. There's an application process.
Yes. Yeah. And really, without going into too much detail about it, the purpose of that is to try to give the members the chance to pay a little bit more and expect a level of access that it allows them to be in that gym and not feel like they're waiting on equipment,
right?
Not feel like they're going to be in an environment that they're not comfortable. The purpose of this is to bring to our clients and new clients an opportunity to have a gym that's not been seen like this before in West Palm. So we're very excited about it. It's obviously going to be something really special when it opens up.
It's a huge spot.
Massive.
Huge.
Massive. Converted a 2-room gym. We knocked down walls that we found out weren't bearing any sort of structure, and ended up turning it into this gigantic 10,000 square foot place. And we are super, super excited to see, obviously, how good it is when it opens, but then also how great it can become as we, continue to see what works and what can be better.
Yeah. I was going to say, you said, One Fitness in West Palm, it's a small boutique gym. Like, not exactly, it's not small.
It's not, yeah.
It's actually a big spot.
Yeah.
That's cool.
It's not small. The cool thing about that is when Trap House opens, we'll be moving our HIIT classes to Trap House, which will allow us right now, One Fitness, if you've come to the gym or if you're curious about it, we split the 2 rooms right now, or the gym, into 2 separate areas, which are, HIIT classes and then personal training. The next step for One Fitness is going to be kind of eliminating that and bridging it to one specific location where it's only going to be private training. So we're going to take that 5,000 square foot facility that now is split into 2, and we're going to make that solely personal training. So we're very, very excited about that as well. That'll be kind of a step forward when Trap House opens. It allows us to expand what we're doing there. But yeah, going in on year 4, we've got some new trainers added in. Always excited to kind of add new equipment and new folds to what we're doing there. So it's been an exciting 4 years for sure.
Cool. That's awesome, dude. And 4 years goes fast.
I
know, because when we met, we had some mutual friends and stuff or contacts.
Mm-hmm.
And then since then, we've been doing some in-service presentations and stuff like that with you guys, with the trainers.
Yep.
Get on the same page with you guys, and then just shedding some light on like what our perspective would be on some stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But that's cool, dude. Congrats.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
So founding members are accepting applications within a couple weeks.
Yeah, I think
for Trap House.
Yeah, I think we're going to be pre-sailing. I can't give an exact number on how many founding members we're going to have, but if people that are instantly interested when they hear this, we're going to be opening up pre-sales within like 2 to 3 weeks, and that will be your founding membership. That'll be kind of getting those first large group of people in. And then from there, we'll kind of figure out what the capacity is going to be. So
yeah, really cool. That's, so I was going to say, so a lot of the clientele that y'all see, because you do one-on-one personal training, that's like your main thing, right?
Yeah.
Outside of when they come see you, if they come see you twice a week, 3 times a week, and you're like, hey, you can't come in the current facility, right, to do workouts out ancillary to what you're doing already.
Yeah.
This now supplies that ability for them to do the same thing.
Exactly.
Right. So when you work with when we work with clients, and you see them twice or 3 times a week, do you still advocate for them to do workouts outside of that?
Yeah. Obviously, it depends on the goals of the clients. And I think this probably goes into your field as well.
Yeah.
How fast does someone want to recover, or how significantly do they want to prevent an injury from happening again? It's the same way with fitness. If you want to see your goals, come to fruition faster, or if you want to, emphasize what we're going for or what we're working on in the gym,
right,
you can maximize the capacity of that by doing stuff outside of the gym. I'm always open to giving my clients information on how to do that and my opinion on the best way to attack those goals. And I'm not so selfish that I'm like, no, you got to see me to work on that stuff.
Right.
I want my clients to get to where they want to be in the best way possible. So I'll give you kind of an example. Let's say I have someone that comes in 2 or 3 days a week, depending upon, what their schedule looks like, and they are training for a triathlon. So I don't love doing cardiovascular based stuff in the gym within the hour that we have.
Right. You want to be efficient.
I want to be efficient. And I know that if you're training for a triathlon, you're going to need to be doing some longer efforts when it comes to building your aerobic capacity. So we're going to focus that time on making your body as resilient as we can to what you're about to put it through. For those of you who do triathlons or focus on endurance sports, and I know you're going to agree with me on this, if you're not weight training, you need to start weight training. Yeah. Not for the thought of putting more muscle on, but for the thought of creating resilience in your joints, strength, so that when you put your body through these hard efforts, it's going to bounce back or withstand some of the trauma that you're putting it through. So
the repetitive impact over and over again. If there's not enough dynamic stability and things are compensating, and there's put a lot of undue stress on the same things over and over and over again, and not training outside of that, it's just a great repetitive micro injury problem that then manifests a little bit bigger of a problem.
Yeah.
So that's when patients in that realm come see us, that's usually what we're talking about.
I knew you were gonna absolutely pick up what I was putting down there. I couldn't say it better myself. And so in the instance of this person that's training for a triathlon, I'm going to make sure that their program looks good on what they're doing on the outskirts. Like, let me see what you're doing for your cardiovascular health. Let me see how you're building up for your run, how you're building up for your bike, how you're building up for your swim. I'm happy to give you advice on that. Stay on that. If you can get an outside program, for sure. If I can do it for you, I'm happy to help you with that. What we're going to focus on in the 2 to 3 days that you're with me is, what can I do to structurally make you sound for when you get out there? How can we avoid ankle rolls? How can we avoid runner's knee? How can we avoid any kind of breakdown of your movement patterns? How do we not get you losing mobility or stability through the shoulder joint when you're actually going through the water, especially when you're open ocean swimming? Same with the running. How can I get you to not have any sort of valgus at the knee or any collapse at the ankle that's going to end up being a burden later in those runs, especially under fatigue? So that's kind of the route that I would go with someone like that. But that spans across anything you want to do. If you want to get better at hockey, because that's what you love doing outside of the gym, I'm going to tailor the workouts to be as efficient as possible for you to get better at hockey. And then we're going to talk about some things that you can be doing on your own to improve that. So yeah, I'm huge on adjunct work, and I'm massive on encouraging that, and always willing to give a helping hand for that.
That's awesome. Besides, and I know it's specific, what common overlap of goals people usually say when they come see you? What do people usually say? All right, so hey, great to meet you, John. What do you want to do? Well, hey, Taylor, thanks for asking. I want to get Boom, boom, boom. What do they usually say?
More often than not, and we've mentioned this before on the podcast, more often than not, I'll kind of dive outside of the realm of the usual stuff, but more often than not, I get, I want to lean down, so fat loss. I want to gain muscle. Outside of those two big ones, the biggest ones I see is I want to wake up pain-free. I want to be able to pick my kids up with more ease. I want to be able to play the sports that I love playing: tennis, basketball, baseball, golf, without pain, either during or after. It really, honestly, it's hard to pinpoint, but a lot of people just come to me with desires of improving either the hobbies that they have or the activities that they're doing on a daily basis that sometimes can start to get harder as we age, or I guess as our schedules get busier. Stress builds up and things start to break down and become a little bit more obvious in our lives. So I would say the biggest thing I get is like injury prevention, or an increased ability to participate in a hobby or a sport that they love.
Yeah. That makes total sense. It's interesting, dude, because we hear that a lot. Like, by the time people come to see us, they're already in pain and they're like limited. And we hear all the time, like, I just don't want to hurt anymore, and then I would love to be able to play pickleball, or 18 holes, or play tennis and like not have this pain be here forever, which sucks. So it's just interesting. Like, it's cool because y'all can nip in the bud first before it becomes a problem. If you notice compensation, but like whatever issues they may be having. Whereas by the time they come see us, it's like, we need to like rehab this thing back,
Yeah.
It's a different stage. It's interesting. How often do you have people that are in pain when they come see you, and then you're able to like work around some stuff and they're able to train without having things get worse?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing I see, because most of the time, if it's a pretty severe injury, they've seen you guys first. They're coming to us afterwards. And based on the connection you and I have, we're talking about like what to avoid and what to work on.
Yeah.
When I have a client that hasn't seen a specialist prior, and maybe we don't know that something hurts until we're doing it.
Yeah.
The easiest way to kind of attack that, and this goes for all trainers, and it kind of goes for anybody that's working out on their own, you want to minimize the difficulty of the movement. So I'm a big believer in don't necessarily take things away. I am a big believer, that being said, in if it hurts, don't do it. So if your knee is bothering you and squatting bothers your knee, don't squat the way that you've been squatting. And it sounds obvious, but you wouldn't believe how many people just push through it and just expect it to get better.
Right.
Take a different approach.
I have a thought on that too in a second.
Yeah, I'm positive you do. Take a different approach and figure out if there's a way that you can train that same muscle group or isolate those muscles individually that all work through that same movement in a manner that's going to require less dynamic stability, less load specifically on that portion of your body. So I'll give an example. We'll stick with the squat. Hey, every time I squat, my right knee kills. It's right in the front of the knee. Okay. More often than not, the injuries I'm dealing with or the pains that I'm dealing with are overuse. You're going to handle a patellar tendon tear. You're going to handle more severe injuries. I'm going to get like the overuse stuff that I'm dealing with more often than not. Not to say you don't handle that. I know you do, but because I've been in here for that. But how I'm going to tackle that problem with a client is, okay, this person, it's non-negotiable. They want their legs to look fantastic for the beach this summer. We have to hit legs. So let's take away the barbell. Let's get away from the back squat. Let's start working unilaterally, because most likely the issue is up the chain or below the chain. There may be an issue that's causing the overuse at the knee, at the ankle, or at the hip. So I can start to isolate those muscles individually on a unilateral standpoint and figure out if there's a weakness in that chain, and then I can kind of attack it. In the meantime, I can put you on machines where I can isolate your quads or your hamstrings or your glutes, and I don't have that weight bearing down axially on your skeleton or your spine through a barbell. And I can also, again, play that kind of that game of process of elimination of like, hey, I'm throwing you on the leg extension. We're working the quads. Why does this movement now no longer, you're going through knee flexion and extension. Why does it not bother your knee? So then we can start to figure out if there's an issue going on at the hip, at the ankle that's causing all of this. Short way of saying it is, don't give up. Don't say my knee hurts every time I squat. I can't do legs until this feels better, and then just wait for it to feel better. I've always been a big believer, and I've applied this to myself because I've gone through a lot of injuries. Find a way to get the work done that's pain-free. And if you can't, go to a specialist. Either go find a trainer or come see Dr. Kyle and figure out what the problem is. Because if you are that limited, more than likely it's affecting you on a daily basis. And if it's affecting you on a daily basis in general daily activities, this is a bigger problem. There's an underlying issue that needs to be attended to.
Right. The something like with that, I usually tell people is like, well, if it's disrupting your life, right? And people they want to do their hobbies and like enjoy their life, and then it's like, well, I'm just going to rest, take some Advil, ice it down. 6 weeks later, get back to the same thing, and it comes back again. And they're like, all right, fine, I'll go get some insights on this, because like, dude, if you just watch TV all the time, you'd be fine. But like people like want to do stuff and like have fun, So it's like, okay, then we're going to mediate and manage this, and correct some underlying issues that cause it in the first place. But usually what we say is like, if there's like a like a tendonitis, right? Usually those guys are the victims, and they're overcompensating and taking up too much load because they're overworking and overcompensating for something else that's not contributing or helping enough, or they're set up for failure for mobility disparities.
Yep.
Where the tendon that's lit up and painful is like a fire alarm going off. And then resting or taking Advil or working around it is kind of like shoving a pillow, or stretching it, in my opinion, is like shoving a pillow against the fire alarm to muffle the sound so it's less loud, and then duct tipping, and they're like, oh, cool, we're good. And then like it just eventually it's great analogy. And it's just gonna like blow up, I was like, well, let's just put out the fire, and then like that will follow suit.
Yeah.
It's just interesting because like very often like we won't even like work on the tendon. If it's like a golfer's elbow or tennis elbow or a knee tendonitis, whatever, Achilles tendonitis, the tendon's not the problem. It's the victim. So we won't even touch that thing. We won't even do any starting soft tissue work. We'll just work on the other stuff. If it's a mobility disparity in neighboring joints up and downstream, and then muscle recruitment, stability, compensation, movement patterns that cause that to overwork and overcompensate. And then manual therapy around it totally. And if that usually, and often dudes like day one will like retest their squat or their like calf raise or something, like, I feel better already. I feel like 80% better. It's like sick, right? Day one.
Yep.
It's like, imagine if we worked on this for the next 6 weeks and we can like incorporate the sports stuff that you're doing and then reload things appropriately and progressively. It's like, that's when people solve problems for like the long term. But then you learn something in the meantime. It's like, show you what to do, But anyway, the tendonitis thing, it's like, usually it's the victim and the fire alarm going off.
Yeah. Would you say that I know in my experience of applying that, my clients are almost always incredibly shocked when they find out that like the area that's presenting pain is not the problem.
Right.
Do you find that that's just like I guess like a wall that you have to, or a barrier you have to bust through every time someone comes in for the first time with an overuse injury?
Totally.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, for sure. The best way is getting some good feedback and the buy-in day one with like, you feel an improvement already.
Yeah.
It's like, and guess what? We didn't even touch your hamstring.
Yeah.
Like we didn't even touch your knee, like your tendon, right? And you already feel better. Like you came in and it was like a 7 out of 10 pain with this like squat movement, whatever. We did some manual therapy stuff. We did some corrective exercises. We retested on your way out and it's like a 1.
Yeah.
It's like, we actually did some stuff and it actually feels better, right? It's like, that's a high five moment. Totally.
Big time.
So it's like, oh, I see. Yeah. It's not like, that makes total sense. And we'll explain stuff, with models and just like get a lot of the same spiels over and over again. But anyway, to answer your question, like if we get a good buy-in and a good retest result day one, that helps a lot.
Yeah.
And, but it's interesting because you mentioned like overuse, like the best way for things to get lit up is repetitively doing the same thing over and over again with a lot of load, volume and intensity.
Yep.
With compensation patterns. So poor movement mechanics with a lot of volume.
Yeah.
That's a great way to put undue stress on the same thing over and over again. And it's like, I try to get away from telling people overuse stuff, especially athletes, because it gets in their head.
Yeah.
And it's no bueno, right? because as an example, imagine like a cross country athlete in high school or a college track athlete, and they have like a knee tendonitis or Achilles or hamstring strain or something like that. And it's like, oh, it's just overuse, take a break. It's like, all right, well, let me ask you this. Do you have any teammates? And they're doing the same volume you're doing, but they don't have hamstring tendonitis or knee tendonitis. Are you doing a significant amount of volume more than they are? They're doing the same. So then why is it that you have this issue and they don't? If it was an overuse injury, then every athlete would have, after 3 months, the tendonitis come up. It's like, oh, here we go. It's the 3-month tendonitis. Everybody gets it. It's like, you're doing something different.
Yeah.
So with that being said, then there's a solution.
Yeah.
We just have to figure out what that is and like investigate a little bit. But anyway, it helps. And so with that being said, the next step, depending on their personality and like where they're at, there's 2 types of athletes. There's the athletes that are like, yeah, fine, I'll do whatever, I don't really care.
Buy-in, yeah.
And then the second athlete that's like, I'll do whatever and I'll tend to exit. Does that mean I'll get better faster? So I'm like, do these little exercises, do these little movement things and mobility stuff, and we'll do some dry needling maybe, help things facilitate the healing process. And they're like, cool, if I come every day and then do 100 reps of that, will I get better faster? I'm like, oh, not
maybe not 100.
There's like, there's things need to take some time, like we can't rush the physiology and healing process. So my talking points with that athlete is a little bit different. I'm like, sometimes less is more. We have to back things down a little bit, modify. We got to modify some stuff. And then the other athletes that are like, they don't do anything. And then it's like, expect things to get better. I'm like, we have to light a fire in their butt a little bit more and like convey, like, you got to do your stuff. You do your homework. Like, do you want to flounder around and like not be good for your whole life? You only have a 4-year career in college. It's a short window.
Yep.
Do you like want to be floundering and struggling and trundling along and like at 70% of your capacity? Usually no. Okay, then we got to hit this thing, Yeah. But if I tell that to the other person, oh my gosh, it's gonna be like a gasoline on the fire. They're gonna come up with other issues. It's like, yo, back it down.
Yeah.
Sometimes even LeBron, like sometimes they have to modify and lessen the volume and intensity to allow things to settle down. You know, so it just depends on their personality and like where they're at.
100%.
But and that just takes a little bit of reading with their personality.
Yeah. Which comes with experience. Work with enough athletes, you start to figure it out.
Yeah, exactly. Do you have any of those clients?
Oh, yeah.
Where they're like, okay, cool. So if I like do this diet thing, if I restrict more, will I lose weight faster? Or if I do like 2 workouts a day instead of 1 a day, will I get better results?
Yeah, I mean, I think those are probably the 2 most popular ones right there that you just
The 2 responses?
Yeah, I mean, I think any sort of nutritional talk with a lot of clients, and I'm not speaking to mine right now. I'll kind of get into them in a second, but like with most clients it's how much is overdoing it? But instead of asking that question, they're really like, okay, I'm just gonna, like you said, I'm gonna 10x it. I need to be, how realistic is it that I lose 5 pounds in 2 weeks? Well, it's more realistic that you do it in 4 weeks. And instead of saying, oh, okay, I'll do it in 4 weeks, it's like, no, okay, I'll double my restriction of calories and that should do it. And then they don't realize the consequences of that. But no, we definitely, I think any personal trainer would say that they definitely have clients like that. And I think you and I have talked about so much before, like how important education and awareness is. I think that's just a lack of like understanding that you can push things too far. I think sometimes we get so caught up in like, okay, the bad things, if you do them in excess, are really, really bad. But people don't realize that when you start doing better things, there's another end to that spectrum, and you can push that back into the realm of doing things too much and doing them in a bad way. So, hey, I eat too many calories, just for an example. I eat too many calories. Okay, well, let's back that number down. Oh, I'm in a great spot. I feel fantastic. But what if I just push this a little further and lean out a little bit more? And now all of a sudden you're restricting so much that you're overtraining, you're not sleeping, you're not recovering, and so too much of anything can be a bad thing. And notice I said can be a bad thing. So I'm not applying that to everything, but we definitely get clients that come in and want to take it to the next level because they want to usually get things done faster. And I'm going to sound like a broken record from every fitness, professional that gets on a podcast ever, but like you have to you have to fall in love with the journey in these things. And I've said that on here before, but it's the truth. You have to fall in love with the process and understand that these things are not quick changes that should just occur and then end 8 weeks later. Establish things that can become lifestyle changes and habitual. And I guarantee not only will they become easier, you'll want them as a part of your life, and you'll see an incredible return on investment, which you only get one life. So it's like, you might as well take the chance.
Right. Like what's the worst case scenario?
Oh God, I added 10 years to my life.
Yeah. Like, oh my gosh, what was I thinking? I thought about that recently. There's some, a podcast I like a lot, fitness, entrepreneurship, leadership, like motivational stuff, whatever. And it was, this guy was talking about Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett. And Charlie Munger, like his partner, he recently passed away, I guess several months ago. He was just like, avoid the 3 L's, ladies, liquor, and then over leverage. As in, like, when someone they're getting successful, right? Or they're doing well.
Yeah.
Right. Nobody ever was like, what really kicked off my career is when I added drugs and alcohol excessively. Like, why didn't I add more drugs and alcohol in my life 10 years prior? Like, how much better would I be now? You know what I mean? So anyway, and they were like, I was like, that makes total sense. Let me write a list. Of like, when my life really kicked on and turned around is when I added these things.
Okay.
So the convert, this is the opposite, right?
Yeah.
Tons of alcohol, drugs, eating excessively junk food, watching an enormous amount of television, scrolling on social media a lot. Like, man, why didn't I do that more? Complaining all the time and just griping about stuff in my life. Like, that really allowed me to really ascend and accelerate. Yeah. It's like, all right, clearly not. Let's do the opposite,
Yep.
Really, I started in less social media, less television, consuming self-development resources. Like, I'm a fan of that. It sounds corny. I don't even care.
You're not corny.
I don't care.
It's cool.
I like, it's cool, man. I like, that's awesome. Not drinking, which I haven't kicked that yet. Like, I enjoy a nice Friday night beer.
Now and then. Moderation.
Cocktail, exactly. The 80-20 rule.
Yep.
Like, what do I really want? The 80-20 rule, moderation, enjoy life a little bit, because I do enjoy that, versus like severe restriction.
Yes.
Right now in my life, that's where my head's at in the current walk of life. But yeah, all that stuff. And I'm like, what's really preventing me from doing that? Snacking at night. Why don't I just like snack on some almonds, just immediately change.
Yeah.
But it's just hard, to consistently do that.
Yeah. It's looking at decisions instead of the immediate response. It's looking at a decision that you're about to make and thinking about what's that return on investment. So don't think about what that thing is going to do for you now, but think about what it's going to do for you 12 hours, 3 days, 5 weeks from now. Yeah. So, I mean, and listen, that's a very mature mindset. Anybody that is at that point in their life will admit it, that they didn't start there, and how they got there was making a lot of mistakes. But I think that's the shift that naturally has to happen when you start heading towards a more healthy lifestyle, is like making that decision of like, boy, that ice cream sounds incredible right now. You've had enough experience of having that ice cream, being happy, and then the next morning having a not so fun morning, versus grabbing that handful of almonds and then waking up the next morning and being like, literally being able to look back and be like, I'm so glad I made that decision. Yeah. And then when you start adding that up over the long term, that's the return on investment that I'm talking about. And some things, like I said, some things are, you get a 12-hour turnaround. Some things, it's a 5-year turnaround. Yeah. I just to, without getting on a tangent here, for the third time now, I've went to my doctor and gotten my blood panel done. And every time I do it, I have the realization that it's like, I got to start doing this every year. It can't be like every 2 years. It can't be, sometimes I even have to do it 2 times or 3 times a year, because it shows you the impact of the decisions you're making. And I'm not telling anybody to like dive in on every single decision they're making, but it helps you realize that like, if you kind of stay on a certain path for long enough, especially when it comes to blood work, that stuff takes time to see the changes. You can look at how impactful it is. And I think that's a really big thing. That's a big maturity step that people make as they get older. But if you can listen to a podcast like this and make that decision earlier, it's like,
So beneficial.
oh my gosh.
I would throw same thing with that list of like, my life really turned around. Like is quality sleep.
Oh my God.
I think two things I'll just say: the regret of staying up too late in the next morning. Especially with kids.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I'm like, why did I do that? And there's some shame involved. Like, I'm so weak. Like, why didn't I just go to bed when I said I was supposed to?
Yeah, that's a huge one. I'm right there with you on the quality sleep. And I've got a watch that loves to just degrade me whenever I don't get enough sleep.
Yeah.
Hey, you didn't get enough sleep last night. It literally will tell me this. You may feel tired today. You may have trouble focusing. And immediately I'm like, I'm so done for the day already.
Yeah. It's like, why are you always right, smartwatch? That's great. Hey, I wanted to bring it up. Like, you might have not got enough sleep. Let's circle back and focus on it next time.
I didn't know that when I went to bed at 2 a.m.
Yeah, exactly. The other thing I would say was like because I was snacking at night before bed, definitely. It's just a struggle for a lot of people, including myself, of like, I want ice cream or I want these chips or like whatever, some snacks. And like, I'm going to grab this handful of spinach and almonds instead. And I'm mad. But be mad, okay? Just do it mad.
Yeah.
It's okay to feel that way. That's another thing I was bringing up that was presented to me. I was like, dude, that makes total sense. Just validating the way people feel, like your emotions or whatever. As in, like, if I'm feeling impatient, that's okay. But how you act on it is really ultimately what the equation ends up to, where it's like, even though you can feel that way, but if you're consistently not acting on it, then you're good. Yeah. Right? That would be somebody that's like actually very patient versus impatient. It's like, boy, I feel so impatient all the time. Well, that's okay. But if you're not acting on it, then you're actually patient.
Yeah.
Just you can feel that way, then you're good. Like courage, right? It's like if somebody's scared and they're doing something, courage isn't the absence of fear. It's the presence of fear and still acting on it.
Yeah.
Like taking action despite the presence of fear.
Yes.
So that means you're a fearful or frightened individual. If actually you act on it, you're actually courageous, right?
Yeah.
I was like, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
I was like, man, you didn't even think about it like that,
Well, let's bring back like a lack of instant satisfaction in this world.
Yeah.
I think where a lot of this comes from, kind of what you're saying, is like being impatient and being able to instantly give myself something that treats that impatience. Mm-hmm. It doesn't really treat it, but the reality is it's almost like a dopamine hit. Like I'm bored. Well, 25 years ago, if you were bored, you would either have to go find somebody to talk to or pick up a newspaper or go come up with a different activity to do, or you would just have to accept that you were bored.
Yeah. By the way, 25 years ago, 1999. Just did the math in my head.
Oh my God.
That doesn't seem like that long ago.
I should have said
like
more.
30 years ago, imagine.
I should have said more. We still had a lot of good stuff in 1999.
Right? Is that, no, wait, am I?
No, you're right.
That's 25 years ago. Yeah.
That's terrifying.
Yeah.
Man, that's so scary.
Way back.
That's
crazy.
But now you can pull out your cell phone.
Yeah.
Like, I really want to talk with my girlfriend. I'm impatient about the need to do that. Let me just text her. Versus like, I'm going to go 40 years now. 40 years ago, you would have to wait to see that person in person. So it's like my point with the point I'm trying to get to is like, I think the reality of some of those situations of like the impatience coming up or like the boredom coming up, or the example you were using to get there was like wanting that ice cream right now, but instead grabbing the almonds and being upset about that. It's like, you're saying accept it. I'm saying normalize that.
Yeah.
Normalize not being satisfied 24/7, because unfortunately where being satisfied 24/7 has gotten us as a society is pretty much intolerable. I don't mean that people are intolerable. I mean that we can't tolerate challenges and hard things.
Yeah. Totally.
Which, if you can't tolerate hard things, you're going to have a hard time getting where you want to go, excelling, being more successful than the person previous to you. Like we're in such an awesome world of like I can hack things now. Someone did it so well that they're going to write a book on how they did it. So I can just read that book versus like figuring it out on my own and going through that struggle. It's amazing. But in the same right, there's something to be said for taking on the struggle, taking on the failure, growing from it. And then instead of following that person's footsteps or their path, like now you've created a new version of it.
Right.
And I love I love mentorship and I love that aspect of things, but I think we could use more of this like unique, instead of taking the easy route or taking the route that someone's already gone through, I'm going to get outside of my comfort zone and push into some struggle and like accept that I'm really pissed off that I'm eating these almonds versus that Rocky Road ice cream.
Yeah, totally. 100%. I would say, man, I really got into mint chocolate chip recently.
Oh, dude,
that's my favorite.
That's my favorite ice cream.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
I get a lot of hate for that.
That's
too.
funny. The only reason why is because like my daughter, she's 4, right?
Mm-hmm.
She was like, I want the green one. I want the green ice cream, you know? And I'm like, all right, I'll have a couple bites. All right, I'll have a bowl. Okay, I'll join you guys. Yeah.
It's great.
Something I heard that I like a lot too with that is it's becoming a different person, right? Like embracing the suck and suffering is like unnecessary. Imagine if there was never any suffering, a person would never be able to appreciate anything.
No.
You know what I mean? So it's necessary. And it's actually it's a good thing. Of course, like there's a lot of it can be terrible situations, of course, where even Stoics would say that nothing's bad or good. It's another realm, like another thought process.
Yeah.
Stoicism. It's also just an interesting school of thought.
Yeah.
Nothing is good or bad. They're just events.
Yeah.
Things are, and they happen. And then we assign whether or not it's a good thing or a bad thing with our emotions and our judgment call.
Yeah.
As in like,
react.
yeah. Which is I like that because it adds a little bit more control in your life. In my life, I'm like, I can perceive this a different way if I choose to.
Yeah.
I feel bad. That's okay to feel that way,
Mm-hmm.
but I can, what am I going to do next? You know,
Yeah.
I'm going to wallow. I could,
Yeah.
or I could do something else, you know?
Yeah.
And the story of like on that note, like the little boy and the old man in the village of, this dad got this little boy a horse,
Mm-hmm.
and the whole village was like, amazing. This little kid got a horse. He's going to learn how to ride. Like what an advantage this kid has. And the old man observing was like, we'll see. Kid's riding the horse, falls and breaks his leg.
Oh.
Everyone's in the village is like, oh my gosh, this is so terrible. I'm so sorry. He broke his leg. Now he's out for a while. Like, is he going to get healed? Dad's really upset. Old man's like, we'll see. Right? War happens. The military comes and recruits all the young kids and boys to be in the military. He has a broken leg. He can't go. Villager's like, wow, so lucky. Can't believe he gets to stay. Oh my gosh, it's amazing. Old man's like, we'll see. Everyone returns from the war. All the kids that returned are heroes. They're looked upon at high status in society. He didn't go, so he wasn't a hero. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry that happened. I can't believe you didn't get a chance to go because your leg was broken. That's a bummer, and you can't be a hero now. That's like a bummer. Old man's like, we'll see. Right? So, and that continues on forever, until it ends up at the end.
I like that. That's cool.
So just like, we'll see, it could be a bad thing, could be a good thing, but it depends on what you want it to be.
Yeah.
You're going to assign that. But anyway, I've really liked that because it adds a little bit more control and purposefulness. So I can do whatever I can perceive things the way that I want to, and I can use it on purpose.
Yeah.
And then for the folks out there who have kids, you're not there yet, right? You will be. Maybe we'll
Not
see.
yet, but hopefully soon.
With what you're saying of like lifestyle choices and being a better version, it's another great way in my head to be like, what would I want my kids later to talk about me, right? Like, oh yeah, well, he gave up because it was hard.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm so sorry, kids. I gave up on this thing with my practice or like with my fitness game and my nutrition game, my relationship with my wife, because it was hard. So I gave up, I just wanted to throw in the towel.
Yeah.
No chance. Am I going to let that happen? No. You know what I mean? Versus then they're observing too, So anyway, it's just an easier way to be like, what do you want your kids to do if they just mimic their parents all the time? It's like, I would want them to be great patience, discipline, choosing things that are beneficial over the long run, longer, more consistently. I'm like, then I'm going to do that. I got to do that for them. It just makes it easier, you know?
No, I love that. I think, you know, we've talked about making the hard choices a lot. We've talked about like, I've talked about that with cold plunging and different things. I've talked about that with working out.
Yeah,
But
the cold plunge.
yeah, but which I still absolutely love and I will endorse until the day I die. But hopefully I'll be like 85,
Same.
still ripping 5 minutes at 40 degrees. But it's brutal. It never gets easier. But I think like I just want to piggyback off that, and I'm not going to go too far into it, but like I could not agree more on this idea that like without suffering you can't have appreciation or happiness. And I think like unfortunately with the perception that we get on social media and through any media today, TV, movies, whatever it is, it's that like people can be happy all the time. And I think what gets overshadowed is like what that person may have gone through and most likely went through to have the level of appreciation that they have now.
Yeah. Or the appearance of happiness when really they're not.
Exactly. And like if you're somebody who seeks to just like fulfill this idea, and I know for a short moment I was not that long ago, where I was like, I'm just going to start being happy all the time. It's just not a reality that exists. And the sooner you can accept that, and the sooner you can have that appreciation of like, for every action, there's a reaction. And that means that when you have those sufferable moments, those horrible things that happen to you or happen to your friends or your family, it's like, if you just trust that if you keep going, there's going to be this gigantic rebound effect. Like that's the beauty of life. And like, and that exists in all forms of life. It exists in the gym too. We look at people and we idolize people that have these like amazing bodies or are incredibly fit. They can lift so much weight. And it's like, you see one instance of them doing a 600-pound deadlift and you're like, how could they ever have gotten there? It's incredible. And you just completely gloss over the fact that like that person is so happy and they've accomplished so much in that moment. But how many times have they failed that lift? How many years have they worked towards that? How many previous PRs did they break? How many previous injuries did they have to battle through? And it's like,
yeah, how many workouts did they suffer through when they didn't want to?
oh my gosh. So like,
I don't feel like working out right now, but I'm going to do it anyway.
Still going to do it. Yeah. So I think like, just to piggyback off what you said, I think it's a super important thing that people can think about and keep in the forefront of their mind when they're going through tough things is like, okay, you know, if the lull of life kind of plays out here, there's going to be a rebound. I just got to keep my head down, keep doing what I'm doing, and things will bounce back.
Yeah, totally. I love that. You're familiar with Dr. Andrew Huberman, right? Huberman Lab podcast.
Oh yeah.
He's cool. Great stuff, man. Like it's so cool. There was an interesting one. They was talking about a snippet that I had found or saw was, I think I'm getting this right. Huberman, if you're listening, correct me if I'm wrong. Reach out. Let's have you on the podcast.
Yeah.
Come on.
Connect that dot.
Let's get in here. West Palm Beach, Florida, man. Just fly in. It's a destination spot. But he was talking about there's an area in the brain, I believe it's the anterior mid-cingulate cortex.
Okay.
That's like a small area of the brain that's considered like the willpower center.
Okay.
Which is, I don't want to do that, but I'm going to do it anyway. Mm-hmm. Or I really want ice cream, but I'm not going to. So doing things that you don't want to, but doing it anyway if there's a benefit, and then resisting things that you want to do that you know it's probably not great, right?
Yeah.
Consistently over time, that region of the brain grows in size.
Wow.
And it proliferates and grows in size, which makes it then easier to do it again because it's growing.
Oh, that's awesome.
Whereas the opposite of that, conversely, consistently not doing that, where it's like it's uncomfortable, I don't want to, or I'm just going to give in, like whatever. That area atrophies and gets smaller. And the brain is like super plastic, as in like pathways are built and achieved constantly, which is cool, and it can reinforce. So we can find new pathways to do things. Imagine like a stroke patient that has like loss of function. The brain can create a new pathway around that necrotic dead area to still create action, which is really cool.
Wow.
So it's plasticity.
Amazing.
All right. So with that being said, we can purposely train things and build pathways the way that we want to, just with consistency over time. And pathways and ruts are developed, and it makes it easier to streamline into that same direction and decision pattern over and over again. So considering that, I'm like, I need to build my anterior mid-cingulate cortex a little bit more, consistently. It makes it easier. That pathway is developed and that rut is is reinforced over and over again, and that becomes easier and easier to do over time.
Yeah.
And then the opposite, it's easier and easier to fall into not wanting to do that.
Yeah. I think that
Which is super interesting.
Well, it is really interesting. And I think, I'm sure in the rest of that podcast, he related that to how people get themselves into such big holes in life. And I'm not even going to go down like the disastrous stuff, but I think when people see someone who's maybe really struggling with obesity, we hear this question a lot in certain circles. You hear like, I don't know how do you even get that big, or how did you even get to that point? And it's a horrific question to ask, but the reality is like you have actual physiological and neurological pathways like this that make it very easy to understand. If you give in a certain amount of times, or if you give in for a long enough period of time, it just becomes easier and easier and easier to keep giving in.
Yeah.
And like, I imagine that in that podcast, he also talked about with that atrophy, it makes it even harder to flip that switch.
Yeah.
It's not just, hey, they're obese, let's put them on Ozempic or semaglutide or whatever, and get them in touch with a nutritionist and then get them a trainer. Good, they'll be great in a year. No.
Yeah.
They still have to show up.
Yeah.
They still have to rewire their brain.
Yeah.
And so...
And commit to a nutritional pattern that's different than what they've most likely been doing recently, over the last several years.
Go even deeper than that. They have to commit to a brand new decision-making pattern. Like, and so that goes even deeper into the idea that it's, it's easy. You just pick the salad instead of picking up the French fries. But it's not, because obviously that neurological pathway is not trained to do that. It's so easy for them to just give in instead. So that was just one example, but I think that's such a cool thing to be aware of as humans, that like we have this pathway that we can train. It sounds like it's a muscle.
100%. That's what I compared it to.
Yeah.
It's like a muscle.
It's just like a muscle. So people make those hard decisions, and you're training even when you're not necessarily in the gym.
Right. The last thing I was going to say with just like who you want to be compared to like the people that you look up to or that look up to you,
Oh yeah.
It's not about the 6-pack abs or the being successful entrepreneurially or career-wise or whatever. It's who you become when you get there.
Yep.
If it's done purposefully. And then that then will be like, it's a better version of yourself totally. You're a different person, right? At least that's the experience that I've had personally.
Yeah.
Like I'm a different person than I was 5 years ago, before I started all this stuff.
100%.
Or even 10 years ago. But becoming a different person, and the person who you become when you get there have that successful moment, which, by the way, if you've achieved success in some capacity, like goals, once you achieve them, you have, I'm sure, right? Once I've done that, I'm like, oh, cool. All right, well, what's next?
It's way less satisfying than you think it's going to be.
Yeah. I want to keep that in my head because I'm still goal oriented, of course. And I have things I want to pursue. But I'm like, what's the journey? Like you said, it's harnessing and building the lifestyle habits to become a different person that then my kids will look up to and be proud of, and then live a high integrity life and just solid, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway,
we're process driven beings, and like reaching a destination is never going to fulfill you the way you think it's going to. You need to always be willing to open yourself up to the next process. Yeah. And these are multiple ways of saying the same thing of like, fall in love with the journey, not the destination. But it's the cold hard truth. There's no amount of money. There's no weight on that scale. There's no pair of jeans that are going to fit perfect that you're going to be like, that's it. I'm good.
Mission accomplished.
I'm set. Like I'm sorry, but the human mind is not wired that way. We're process-driven beings. And so if you're someone who struggles with motivation, the best place to start, and we talked about this last podcast, is like goal setting. And don't look at these. I think the biggest mistake people make is they set these massive goals that are going to take a lot of time to get to and a lot of different processes to get to. Start small and branch out. And when you become someone who's capable of setting goals, you don't have to write them down all the time. You can kind of set them in motion in your mind. You find yourself feeling stuck a lot less. And I'm not saying you're keeping your mind busy. I'm saying that you're keeping yourself moving in a direction that's going to get you to where you want to be. and it's a goal that maybe it might not be on that piece of paper right now or in your mind right now, but eventually you'll reach it later in life and you'll be like, I'm so glad that I did this, and that, which at first were the insight goals, but they're the reason that you got to where you eventually wanted to be.
Totally. I'm a huge fan of that, of writing stuff down.
Oh yeah.
It's like a self-contract almost.
100%.
And then you read it and you're like, I'm not doing it, you know?
Exactly.
And it's not anybody else but you. And what I've heard that, or I've read, it's like a 60 to 70% increased likelihood of actually achieving the goal if you write it down.
Wow. That's
the next
insane.
part of that, other than, well, there's other things besides just like, I want to weigh 180 pounds, you know? Okay, now I'm 60% chance better. Well, I'm definitely a huge fan, and I have my own, I'm an advocate, work backwards from there. All right, cool. Then what things do you think I would need to do in order to lose 20 pounds or whatever? What would that look like? Probably would need to dial in my nutrition stuff, which looks like eating this, and this on Monday through Sunday.
Yep.
I need to exercise 3 days a week and then go for a walk on a 4th day and maybe swim or something on an active day on like a 5th day, you know?
Okay.
Right. Definitely have to do that. Probably need to get some good quality sleep. I want to go to bed at 9 o'clock every night. All right. So those are the task lists. And then the win isn't tomorrow being like, well, I didn't lose 20 pounds. Mission failed. The win is at the end of the week, did I just stick to these tasks that I know if I do that long enough time horizon, I will get to that one, like that 20 pound loss or whatever. That's the ultimate win. And I'm like, which is the journey.
Yep.
And I'm like, the process. And I'm like, that makes total sense. Because it's so daunting to be like, I need to climb this mountain of 20 pound loss and it's hard and I'm not there yet.
Make it smaller.
And then, just break down the tasks, you know, of like, my goal isn't even to lose 2 pounds right now. My goal is, did I work out 3 times this week? Did I go to bed at 9? Yes. Cool. Did I eat the things I wanted to eat that I said I wanted to eat? Yes. Okay, cool. Then you're mission accomplished.
Yep.
Repeat that times 12 weeks. Just keep going with the same tasks. And the naysayers, of course, and the people that are around you, and it's usually the people that are closest to you that are the hardest people to be around.
Yeah.
Because they don't want to see you be successful because they're a reminder that they weren't, which sucks. But not being, you know, just as best as we can, like the naysayers, right? Like just not focusing on them because they're always going to be right until they're not. Like, yep, guess what? You didn't lose 20 pounds yet. Look at this guy trying so hard, right? You're not, they're right.
Yeah.
Today they are. But if you're consistent enough over 12 weeks, they're going to be wrong.
12 weeks.
Until they're not right. You know what I'm saying?
100%.
But anyway, I was like, I heard that too. I was like, man, I like that. The pessimists are always right until they're not.
Yep.
Which is 99% of the time they are right until that one time they're not. But anyway, I'm a huge fan of writing the goals down.
Yeah.
It's been super helpful for me, you know.
And it's well said, working backwards. I think that's a really good point. I think that's the best way of saying, like, minimize those goals, make it a daily thing that you can kind of run through that wall day after day after day. And it doesn't feel like such a gigantic task anymore. And
we're in last thing, because we got to wrap it up. Damn, we always talk.
Yeah, we always talk. We always get on different tangents.
But you mentioned, okay, I want to lose weight, right? It's a super common thing.
Yeah.
And people are like, all right, I want to eat this fashion better, this nutrition habits better. And then I need to definitely dial back the amount that I'm eating. So calorie restriction. Right, it's like a purposeful, it's calculated. Yeah. And then people take it to far end and they're like, I'm going to restrict way more. And there's consequences to calorie restriction. Yeah. What are those consequences?
Well, a lot of the consequences we see is malnutrition. That's a big one right there. It's just not getting enough of the nutrients or not getting any of the nutrients that your body needs to function on a daily basis, your vitamins, your minerals, and then just outside of that, the macronutrients that you need to recover and function on a daily basis. So malnutrition is a big one. And I don't mean that in the sense that you're starving yourself. I mean it in the sense that, like, you're going to feel tired. You're going to feel run down. It's going to affect your sleep. It's going to affect your ability to focus. You're going to have, brain fog. These are common things that get glossed over because people, I'm just tired. It's just been a long week. It's like, the reality is you may not be giving yourself enough. Yeah. Another big consequence, if you really want to deep dive it, is we start to get into that stuff. All kind of leads into, like, you can have hormonal issues. You can have issues where it goes far deeper, and over longer spans of time, if you continue down that route, you can affect your metabolism, you can affect your thyroid, you can affect hormonal functions that can cause,
more weight gain,
more weight gain,
stress,
more weight gain, higher cortisol levels, which lead to drops in testosterone, increases in estrogen. You go through, we could sit here and go through all the problems, but it's like, the reality is, that's why it's so important to team up with someone, whether it's a nutritionist or a personal trainer that has experience with nutrition or is licensed in it, to go over those things, because you can't just keep taking away 500 calories every 2 weeks and expect to feel good. It's just not going to happen. And in a lot of cases, it might even derail the goal that you thought you were reaching.
Right. That's what it's going to derail the goal. That makes total sense. And, something with nutritionists I've spoke with, what I've heard from them too, is calorie restriction, or not enough protein, of course.
Oh yeah.
And still exercising. The goal is to lose weight. Really, what people say, like you said, they want to drop body fat percentage, and they want to increase lean muscle tissue,
or at least maintain it.
Right, or maintain it.
Yeah.
Where if they don't have enough protein and they're exercising on top of that, or enough calories to support that, their body first goes to the muscle tissue.
Yeah.
The glycogen stores within their muscle tissue, and then it starts eating their muscle tissue.
Yeah.
Which is going to not improve their muscle gain.
Yeah.
Which won't be effective to help decrease body fat percentage.
Yeah.
So it's like you said, it's derailing that. It's actually a detriment.
Yeah.
It's stifling your progress, actually.
Yeah. The reality is, as badly as you want to see that number on the scale go down, we don't really care if the number's going down, because if you're losing muscle mass, I'm not saying you're becoming less fit. I'm saying you are becoming significantly less healthy. You are pulling away from your life expectancy. There's a very, very strong correlation between life expectancy and muscle mass that you have going into your later years. And it all comes down to function.
It's a great point.
One of the biggest issues that our elderly population has is they become less functional. But on top of that, if you suffer a fall and you break a hip or you break a leg, you would not believe how high. I'm not going to give the number because I can't pinpoint it, but it's up like above 50%. Your chances of passing away in the next 3 years, your mortality rate goes through the roof when you break a hip at an older age. Well, guess what? If you maintain muscle mass, if you can maintain your ability to function the way you did when you were younger, by training, by holding onto the muscle mass, by doing mobility, by keeping yourself moving and not getting sedentary, like you're cutting that. It's crazy. If you don't do that stuff, you're just adding to that mortality rate. You're increasing it massively. So I always tell people when they're going through these massive fat loss goals, or they're heading for them, and especially people who may be doing it through the use of like semaglutide, like Ozempic, because I know it's become so popular, you need to be weight training, and you 100% have to be hitting a protein goal, because if you are just shedding muscle mass, one, you're probably not going to be happy with the way you look, and two, you are taking years off your life.
What are your last thing? We got to get going.
Okay, last thing.
What are your thoughts on Ozempic, semaglutide?
I think that it is. My opinion on it has changed drastically in the past year. When it first came out and it became very popular, I was very naive. I didn't quite understand, one, how it was being applied, two, if it was a healthy option, and three, I was upset with the accessibility of people being able to get it that didn't need it. My opinion has since changed with research and exposure to more knowledge of people that are using it for the right reasons. It is, by all accounts at this point, with what we know, pretty much a miracle drug. If it can take someone who is on the precipice of becoming diabetic, or someone who is diabetic, and it can help them shed weight or fight back becoming diabetic, you are talking about literally saving lives and adding years onto someone's life. So when used appropriately for the correct populations and prescribed by a doctor, it's a miracle drug. We're saving people's lives. That's my honest opinion on it. When it is being used recreationally for someone who is just trying to shed those last 5 pounds before their bachelor or bachelorette party, like, I don't think you're fully taking into account the long-term health effects it may have on you. And I think you're being irresponsible with a drug that really its purpose is to help those who really can't lose weight or are battling a diabetic diagnosis. So it's an amazing drug when used appropriately.
Yeah.
That's my opinion on it.
Makes sense. I've definitely read recently some stuff, negative, like detrimental aspects to it with if it being, used too much or abused, metabolic and hormonal, systemic, like dysfunction because of that over long term, which is no bueno, obviously. But I agree, like it could be really helpful from what I've read, when used appropriately, it could be really life-changing for people.
Yep.
What's the best way for people, like if someone wants to come see you guys, what do they do?
Yeah. Easiest way to find me is I'm pretty much there every day for most of the day is at One Fitness, 505 Belvedere Road. And if you can't find me there, when this place opens up, I'll probably be at Trap House, which is just a few blocks down the road. Outside of that, you can find us at One Fitness on Instagram, and you can find me at Snook on Instagram. And don't be shy if you want to send a message. I might not see it right away, but I'm always happy to reply and get connected with people. But yeah, those are the easiest way to get in touch with me.
Cool. Nice, man. Awesome. Well, thanks for coming in. We'll have to expand more on some of these other things again, and we'll be in touch with Trap House. I'm excited.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's going to be awesome. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, man, totally.